tonight, President Trump defending his red line, accusing Democrats of going after his finances, tweeting, "Now that the 2-year Russian collusion case has fallen apart, there was no collusion except by crooked Hillary." And the Democrats, they say, "Gee, I have an idea. Let's look at Trump's finances and every deal he has ever done." Well, putting aside that Mueller, of course, is not done, the president is wrong. A lot of people have been trying to follow Trump's money trail for a long time. Jason Carroll is out front.
It took just about 4 minutes, but during that time, freshman Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio Cortez may have created a roadmap for a House subpoena of Trump's elusive tax returns.
The Washington Post reported on the Trump links Bronx course in an article entitled, "Taxpayers Built This New York Golf Course and Trump Reaps the Rewards."
While questioning Trump's former attorney and fixer, Michael Cohen, Ocasio Cortez suggested Trump's Bronx property is a boondoggle for him, but a bust for taxpayers in her district. The backstory, Trump didn't build the course, nor does he own it. He secured a generous 20-year deal to manage it. Starting in 2015, taxpayers spent $127 million to transform an old garbage dump into what you see now. And there's this. Taxpayers for the first 4 years got virtually no return on their investment. Starting this year, Trump has to pay the city a minimum of $300,000. In short, tax experts say nothing illegal in the deal, but that doesn't mean taxpayers here were not severely shortchanged. John Liu was the city's comptroller when the deal was in the works.
I cautioned the city against this deal. The fact of the matter is Trump did get a sweet deal.
The White House declined to comment on the recent growing interest in the president's tax returns, but Liu says Ocasio-Cortez's line of questioning brings into focus Trump's other properties where Cohen and local officials allege values were deflated to reduce tax bills.
The president claimed in financial disclosure forms that Trump National Golf Club in Jupiter, Florida, was worth more than $50 million. He had reported otherwise to local tax authorities that the course was worth, quote, no more than $5 million. Mr. Cohen, do you know whether this specific report is accurate?
It's identical to what he did at Trump National Golf Club at Briarcliff Manor.
In 2017, CNN found that Trump had fought the tax assessments of all 12 of his U.S. golf courses except the one in Bedminster, New Jersey. That included his Trump National Golf Course in Westchester, New York, which Trump claimed in campaign filings was worth more than $50 million. Yet in 2015, his attorneys argued it was worth significantly less, $1.35 million. Again in 2017, the Trump Organization claimed in federal election filings another property, Trump National Golf Club in Jupiter, Florida, was valued at more than $50 million. But looking back to 2014, Trump's lawyers claimed it was worth no more than $5 million. With these tactics, tax experts say Trump could be saving millions, but at taxpayers' expense. In response to Ocasio-Cortez's questions, Cohen noted that Trump's tax returns would show the truth.
The Congresswoman's testimony really sharpened the focus, really highlighted the stakes. What is going on with the president's personal financial positions, and to what extent are his finances in conflict with his duties in running the government?
And Stephen Rosenthal, who you just heard from there, testified in front of a Congressional House and Ways subcommittee about presidential tax returns. The chair of the House and Ways, Congressman Richard Neal, does have the power to request the president's returns. And Rosenthal says Neal is laying the groundwork to do just that. However, while the committee does have the authority, Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin, whose department oversees the IRS, will decide whether or not such a request is ultimately granted. Aaron?
Well, I think we know that that will be not forthcoming, let's say, easily. All right, which sets up what comes next. All right, thanks so much to you, Jason. I want to go now to Russ Buettner, a reporter for the New York Times. He's done extensive reporting on the president's money, and Lee Ford-Tritt, a University of Florida law professor who specializes in estate planning, things that are right at the center here of this Trump story. So, Russ, obviously, Jason was going through a few examples, and some of these are pretty incredible, right? Oh, well, you say $50 million here and $1.35 million there. This is even in a percentage basis well outside the range of what anybody could reasonably understand. This is just the tip of the iceberg, though.
Right, and you can run afoul of laws in doing that sort of thing. The way that usually works is that in a commercial property, the property owner will submit an income and expense statement that'll say how much money they're making and what the profit is, and then there's a multiplier used to figure out based on that what it's worth. They often argue about that multiplier. It's called the capitalization rate. But if the data that's submitted, the statement that's submitted is not true, is not accurate, which you submit under penalty of a crime usually, you can really run afoul, and they don't often check that. They don't actually go in and look at your books as an auditor might later on.
Wow. And so theoretically, somebody could be looking at that now. Obviously, reporters like you are looking at it, but I mean, I'm talking about
You'd really have
people
to have
like the Southern District or whomever. We don't know. Somebody could be looking.
Right. You'd really have to have subpoena power to get in and get their actual records to figure out if what they represented as their profit was really true.
All right. So there could be serious questions here, Lee Ford. And obviously, as we, pointed out, people find ways to pay less taxes, right? That's the point. The reason the tax code is, I don't know what, like a mile high, or I'm exaggerating. I'm being like Trump-like there. I'm exaggerating, but it's high because you can take advantage of whatever's in there. But there's a difference between that and some of what Trump did, right?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think any individual person might be conservative on their taxes or aggressive on the taxes. Mm-hmm. But if you go so aggressive, you're going to pass into illegality. And I think the New York Times, and Russ is more familiar with this than I am, the New York Times did a great job of showing how the Trump family, Fred Sr. and his children, have really used valuation distortions to create and take advantage of these tax loopholes. These tax loopholes aren't illegal. Many rich people do it, especially in real estate development. But if he knew better and they push it too much to fraud, absolutely illegal crimes have happened. All
right, so let's talk about this. When you're saying absolutely illegal crimes have happened, right? This is very possible. We don't know, but it's very possible. When you look at all these examples, right, you got to look. It puts a new light on this exchange that the president had with reporters at the New York Times about his money.
Mueller was looking at your finances or your family's finances unrelated to Russia. Is that a red line?
Would that be a breach of what his actual...
I would say yes. Yeah, I would say yes.
Red line.
Red line, right. And there's a lot there. Part of what he could be wanting to hide in his tax returns is just how much money he actually makes and what the sources of it are. But some of the issues that we raised went back to how he got huge chunks of his wealth from his parents. And that was through some trust funds and his father's estate, through which they just grossly undervalued some properties. There was a body of properties that moved through a trust in the mid-1990s that they attached a valuation to of $41 million ultimately. Banks, a few years later, valued that same portfolio at $900 million. That's a huge jump. And some of them at the time were actually valued at below zero, even though they were kicking off tremendous amounts of revenue. And I think part of what Lee Ford was addressing was that Donald Trump, as a real estate professional, should know the difference.
He should know the difference, and he has lawyers who definitely know the difference, Lee Ford, right? I mean, and part of this is like, come on, it seems it defies rational looking at this to think that he would think it was okay.
Yeah, to a degree. I mean, President Trump holds himself out to be a real estate mogul, an expert in the field. If you decide to sell your house, Aaron, and you went to an appraiser to appraise your house, you could rely on them. You're not in the real estate market. But Donald Trump, he's always in the real estate market. So just because, and I've seen the White House do this, they push back saying he relied on experts. He had appraisers do it. He has lawyers do it. Well, that doesn't exculpate him. If he knew better, if he knew these were based on wrong numbers, and he's in the know, he knows the market, well, then it's getting closer to fraud.
Well, and you know what, on that, I wish I had my budded soundbite ready. That's when we put them all together. And he goes, no one knows more than I. And I go through all the things that he knows nothing about, including the generals and everything else. Real estate, he knew a whole hell of a lot. And that's the area where they're trying to say, oh, he relied on other people. Thank you both very much.